Hey, what's up, dudes? Here with my buddy, Steve Marchena. Yeah! Woo! That's awesome, bro.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for laying that on us. Now, that's the same classical you had last time?
Yes, it is.
So that Fender's the tuner. That's a capo or something.
Nah, this is a Fatfinger.
Okay.
Do you know about these? And yeah, so the idea, we talked about this before, this idea of mass equals sustain.
Oh, right.
I think maybe in the first video I'm like, yeah, I don't cut the strings back here because I want as much mass as possible.
You ever try quartering them? You do.
We talked about that. Yeah, no, you know what? Something happened. I kind of snapped, and I decided I'm just going to start cutting the strings again, and I'm in that phase now again.
I go through the same thing.
But I'll tell you about the Fatfinger. They did. They looked at like waveforms, like, hey, let's record this guitar playing an A chord, with it or without it, and it doesn't make the guitar louder, but it delays the inevitable decay. Right. So if if the waveform of you figure if you look at especially like a Stratocaster or something, it's gonna go boom loud and then it's coming right down.
Right.
Versus you put one of these like on a Strat and instead of going like this, it's more like that.
Right.
It's one of the little subtle things I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Well, a buddy of mine on YouTube, he's a big fan of this thing called a Jimmy clip. And basically, it's a clip that clips on here to silence these little strings. Now, you wouldn't think you'd be able to hear that, but when he does the before and after, if you pay attention, you really can hear it, And he does it for, well, the ones that have a tailpiece have a problem. Obviously, there's a gap there, and then the gap up here. And he'd put two Jimmy clips in, and I have to say, it was tighter.
Right.
It was a noticeable. It's subtle.
It's subtle enough
but it's there.
Yeah. Like if you only heard the guitar with the Jimmy clip or with the Fatfinger, you'd be like, you wouldn't notice it. You start A-Bing them. Anything that you can A-B and notice a difference, I think it's worth the time to make that change. Because when those things start adding up.
Make that change. No.
Yeah.
No, I hear you. No, I know exactly. I mean, it's... once you have a decent guitar, you have a nice Ramirez, then it's incremental.
You know what? It's interesting you say that because I mentioned this little PV travel guitar that I got.
Oh, right.
And by putting a Fatfinger on that makes a big difference. Right. I think the nicer the guitar, the harder it is to improve upon it or the sustain.
Is that other guitar you brought today?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So it's funny. When I saw that, what came to mind is when I was out at NAMM, and when I was back in NAMM,
back in NAMM,
the Lee Rittenhour set, he had like a Les Paul, and then like probably like an L5 or something like that, or a the larger body. But then he had the Yamaha silent guitar, if you've ever seen that.
Of course,
so it's a block in the center.
Yes, yeah.
What's so interesting, they're about $600, $700.
Yeah.
What's interesting is that there's a guy on Amazon, like, just selling a total copy with, like, zebra wood for about, like, $175. And, at that money, it's like, I might try one out.
Absolutely.
As like a little practice, carry guitar. Did you buy that in further into...
Wapple Music, just to have, I'll tell you, even with this guitar, sometimes I'll arrive at a gig. I try to arrive early for stuff just because, especially when you're going to be performing, that panic of
Oh, I'm a stickler for that because I learned long ago that it turns anxiety into ease.
That's right, yeah.
And it's just, it's like I already have enough to think about and worry about. So I very often have to be at specific places at specific times, and it's like there's a deadline. Early. You got to be there. Right. And it's like if I have to be in town Boston at 2 o'clock, for a meeting, and I'm leaving at 12:30.
Right. Oh yeah.
It's like I don't want to. It's like even 12.
Yeah.
Just if I get down there an hour earlier, 12. Who cares?
Right. Right. Well, then if you have a nice travel guitar, my thinking is you get there and you warm up in the vehicle. And I've done that with this guitar, but it's not going to be comfortable to.
Right. That looks like a tweaked nut. I've just noticed it has a slight. Yeah. You see that?
Yeah, it has the G string.
Yeah, that's a what they would call that, an intonated nut.
Right. I think
that's pretty slick.
Is there something going on like that back here?
Oh, I'm sure. The bridge has very often done that too, but the nut less so.
Right.
But it does make a big difference.
Oh yeah.
It really does.
I mean, if they want the guitars to play in tune,
the assumption is that you need this. The string can start all in the same spot, but can end in different spots. But the reality is that if it starts in a slightly different spot and ends in a different spot than the other strings, it really truly is intonated.
I want to think about the math here a little bit. Is that if you only fix the bridge and not the nut, then you probably will have the guitar playing in tune from the 12th fret, fine. But then all these frets, like the further you get, the closer you get to the part that's not adjusted, the more the strings are going to be out of tune with each other.
Right. And that's probably here as well, right? Because it's like a sort of a mirror. So it gets worse, it gets better, gets worse, gets better.
That's what I'm saying, right? Whatever side that you have it. Well, if you figure, no matter what the nut's doing,
right?
Once I get to the, this is way I think is that from the 12th fret on, if the bridge is right, this should be okay. Does that seem you're past the halfway point?
Yeah, no. Because the way I see it is what happens is if this is out, if this center point is out, there are points on it that are better than others.
Right.
But it's basically it's almost like a sine wave, right? So it's like you've got a point that's bad, you get better, and you get back to not indifferent, and then worse, and then indifferent, and then really bad. There's spots along the neck. From my experience, because I'll play a chord down here, it'll be perfect, and I'll get up in here and it'll be just all bad, and then you get back up here again and it doesn't seem to be quite as bad again. It's almost like it comes around, and then it gets much worse again.
Now the original bass player in Hyperspace, he had I want to call it a ding wall, and the bass, the frets themselves were staggered to compensate for this. So I guess that's the thing you get into.
I've seen that a lot lately, especially on guitars that have 7, 8, or even 9 strings. They start to fan the frets. Right, because the log is different.
Yeah.
Right? It moves logarithmically, but the log is different for each string.
Yeah.
So we use these strings here, and we get pretty good. But if you had a true temper, each string would be at a different spot.
Right.
So when they fan out like that, they just use a compensated log.
And when you say it gets better, I still think the struggle is to get the guitar to play in tune even as well as a piano that's tuned well.
Oh yeah,
right. And then once you have that, the guitarist can put a little.
I'm telling you right now, I've been around a lot of piano players. They suffer just as bad as we do. That piano will be in tune for 24 to 48 hours, and then they'll be like, it's out again.
Right.
It's like they I swear, I know just as many neurotic piano players as there are neurotic guitar players.
Right.
Which is why, and a lot of, I think, a very real sense, tuning is in your hands because you compensate all the time. You tend to be just a hair flat and maybe just get a little.
But playing the guitar is also in your hands, so you want the tuning to be as a given as possible. The other thing I'm thinking about tuning a piano, imagine if you tuned, so there might be several strings connected to one key. Imagine if tuning that one, that then the tuning of the other keys were dependent on it. You'd say this is a cluster, and that's what the guitar is. Whereas it's not like, hey, I got this note in tune, don't worry about anything else. It's yeah.